Aloha. Welcome to ThinkTech Hawaii's focus on education movers, shakers, and reformers. Interviews with people who have special insights into education from preschool, K through 12, and higher education. I'm Jim Shon, your host. We're streaming live every Wednesday at noon. And today's show focuses on information technology in higher education, specifically at the community college level. My guest is Mike Meyer, who's the Chief Information Officer for Honolulu Community College. Welcome, Mike.
Thank you. It's nice to be here.
Yeah, you've been involved with IT stuff for 30 or 40 years. When I remember you were working a camera for Cable 10 interviews with new candidates for the ledge.
Yeah. You have a memory that's too long, Harry. Let's just not go back quite that far.
Okay, but you have gone through a journey as technology has as well. Tell us how you got involved and what you've been doing over these 30 years.
Wow. Okay, 30 years in a couple of minutes. All right.
Okay,
all right.
yeah.
That's good. If we go all the way, well, okay. I started out in cable television, as you said, originally. That was after we first met in graduate school in the NOAA, right? So I spent 23 years in cable TV doing a number of different things that were increasingly technically oriented, from television engineering, then increasingly to data communications. And that kind of ended up with something called Roadrunner, which was the first broadband cable service, right, to provide internet service to homes via a high-speed internet service via broadband cable. So I was the first general manager of that here in Hawaii, and we were one of the first systems in the country for Time Warner Cable to do that. So that gave me a lot of experience at doing bizarre things that were new and nobody had done before, and how to get people to buy these things, right? Decide that they were worth their money to buy, which at that time, surprisingly, they weren't. Well, why would we need high-speed cable? I can just call up and get my email, right? Yeah. Dial-up modem, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, but then once they tried it, they discovered they liked it, right? Yes. And it goes on from there. So from there, I spent roughly 12 years running my own companies, providing actually internet services, web services of various kinds tied to e-commerce and other things, right? Rather than simply building websites, I went beyond that. And ended up with my last company doing cloud computing, which was moving the entire process of information processing to the cloud. And hence the term cloud, which has become, my goodness, a word that everybody tries not to use anymore, right? Because it's been used too much. And from there, having sold my businesses, I was able to get an opportunity to go to Honolulu Community College, courtesy of Mike Rhoda, who was chancellor there, who you know too,
yes,
right?
Yes.
Very well. He was chancellor there at the time, and I had run into him, and he asked me, I told him, I'm in the process of selling my businesses. I need a job. I need to go find something to do. And he said, wow, okay. A couple of months later, he called me up and said, you know, I got something for you. Can you come and change our IT? Can you fix it? Can you make it work? Sure, I said, which was a really great opportunity, because basically they've given me the chance to do what I thought should be done for a community college campus. So that's the long view of this thing.
So at the Time Warner Cable Roadrunner stage, you were dealing with kind of retail consumer
Yes.
Perceptions, needs, wants. Taste this, you'll like it.
Yeah, very much so. I mean, I actually worked quite a bit in marketing. I ended up in product development, because that's what that was. In fact, the position that I had was actually in the cable business called New Media, right, which is a new product. And we were trying to build the web as a product that people would look at, equivalent to their television set, which when we started, everybody was sure, no, that'll never happen. People will never, TV is where it's at. This stuff is minor, this web thing, right? Now, of course, TV is on the web, right? Such as we are right now.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So the world has changed a lot there. So I've done a lot of things with that. I also have worked a lot out of necessity with the human technical interface that gets the technical part of it, right? How do you explain these things to people? What do they want to do with technology? How do they work with it? Right?
I remember, I don't know if this is a true story, but when Apple was coming out with his computer and the mouse, how do we get people to learn how to do this? And I guess the story goes they put Solitaire, the card game, on everybody's computer. And so people were playing Solitaire, and that's how they learned how to use the mouse.
Oh, yeah.
I suspect there are things like that that you have to discover for the non-technological savvy among us.
Yeah, that's an interesting story, because if you get it right, the mouse, which was actually developed by Park Xerox originally and then picked up by Apple, if it works, people will use it, right? It automatically solves a problem, even if they didn't know it, so they'll use it. It's easier this way. If that doesn't happen, and I used to have to do that a lot with new products, new services, you put it in front of people and explain how it works. And you know, if they sit there and oh, that's really great. I used to have this happen all the time. Oh, that's really great. Wow, that's a great service, right? And then after you talk to them for another 5 or 10 minutes, you know, and they're going to go in, and they come back about 5 minutes later and say, what was it you were talking about? We were talking, you know, I don't know what that was, right? Never use it, you know. You've got to, if they use it, then it's there. It has to be something that solves a problem that people have. I used to use that as a standard line for this. If we're not solving a problem that people have, you don't have a product you can sell to them. The technology has to do something that they can understand and use to solve a problem.
We'll get to how that might apply to a community college institutional setting, that consumer sensitivity, understanding.
Sure.
But you also went into the world of business as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And a lot of people, I think, are wondering, is this real? And is it real for Hawaii? And, you know, is it a sector where there are a lot of jobs? Or is it somebody else is going to do this and we'll take it and use it?
You mean technology like this as turning Hawaii into the Silicon Valley kind of thing?
Or the kinds of entrepreneur things.
Any entrepreneurial development, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, having been involved with that for some 25, 30 years, yeah. The answer is yes and no, right? Yeah. Yes, the potential is there. No, it's probably not going to be big, and that is a factor that if you go into business here, you have to deal with. The market is not that big, right? We have a very rich market, you know, in terms of the socio-demographics that you have. It's a wide range. It's very useful for testing products and services. I ended up doing that for Time Warner Cable. We did a lot of testing here because it didn't corrupt other areas, right? It was isolated in the middle of the Pacific. And besides, the executive staff from Time Warner Cable liked to have us do tests on things because then they could fly out in February and March and check on it, right? You know, see how it was going. But no, it's good that way, but it's a limited market if you're in the business to become rich and famous as an entrepreneur. Not that you can't do it. You can do it, but in almost every case, you're going to have to move out. You're going to have to move somewhere else to the mainland.
And from your perspective, then, the efforts of dreaming that technology and IT might be a source of jobs for kids here in Hawaii, I'm hearing maybe not so much, or...
Well, actually, let me kind of contradict that.
Okay.
At the time when I started doing all of this stuff, not so much. Although we were trying to make it that way, and it was a really concerted effort to figure out how to educate kids to become part of this world, become technical IT engineers or whatever, and to build that kind of business here. Now it's more so, but it's because things have changed, right? You know, at that point, it was new. I mean, as we were talking about before we got here, right? My career in this neatly covers the transformation from the old world of mainframe computers in buildings far away that nobody knew anything about, all the way through to everything being instantaneously in your pocket on your smartphone, right? This is a pretty major shift. So in answer to that question specifically, there is a lot more opportunity here now. In fact, one of the things that I work with in the community college level is trying to educate more people to come into programs to get trained technically. This comes to STEM, right. Science, technology, engineering, math, which is a big issue again now because we can't fill the jobs. We can't fill the positions that are available for technically trained people to do things. And we don't have enough students coming through the system because students don't want to take the hard courses. Now, that's not because they can't do them. I'm getting into my opinion here, obviously. But it's predominantly because they don't understand how exciting the work is, or what it is, or what it can lead to, or how they can really be involved in it, what they need to do to get there. So that's a whole other area that we can spend 2 or 3 hours talking about that one too. So yeah, there's more potential than there was. But this is not going to be Silicon Valley, right? You know, it just doesn't have the mass of technological innovation or people or businesses here to do that.
So it's not a big employment opportunity, but it is somewhat of an opportunity. And jobs are going unfilled
yes.
by our local students.
Yes.
Because they're not trained well enough, I guess.
Well, yes, I don't want to even say they're not trained well enough. If they choose to be trained, they are.
I see.
But they have to choose. They have to choose those fields, right? And we have a real problem with people tackling fields that require calculus, right? Or,
yes.
you know, and even in the community college, we have pre-engineering programs and applied engineering programs, which we're working on right now. The end level, the highest level of math required, it requires a calculus course, right? That's pretty tough for people who have been taught all their life that math is like, oh, you know, I don't want to do that. So it's a psychological thing, right? And we have to figure out how to overcome that because the jobs are there. There's another side of it that I work with a lot, and that's gender disparity, if you want to put it in terms of technical jobs, which is becoming better and better, right? But we have problems here in Hawaii, specifically in IT, in certain areas with, you know, in fact, we have a program at Honolulu Community College, which is a very, very good program in cable technology, okay? It's really computer, electronics, networking technology. And we have only about 10% women enrolled in that program. And absolutely no reason for that. In fact, we've got a project that I'm working with now that I said, we need to figure out why this is. I mean, somebody's not getting the word here because we have jobs in these fields that pay very well, right? And why don't we have everybody in it that could possibly be in it, right? So that's another area that we have to work on. That's where it is right now, trying to fill in the gaps or figure out how to get enough people into the program.
Are you seeing some K-12 schools or high schools that are stepping up? Are they responding to this? It's hard when you have, I teach English, I teach this, I teach that.
Yeah.
STEM is more of an integrated issue, yes?
Yeah, well, without getting too far into the STEM thing, I have my own opinions on that too, obviously. I've been working with it for so long. Yeah, it's hard to deal with. I mean, in fact, let me put it this way. One of the things that has happened out of the first phase of STEM, which was about 8 or 9 years ago when STEM became a thing, right? We need to deal with this. It got kind of sidetracked because everybody decided, more or less, well, you got to go back and fix the elementary schools. You got to change, you know, you got to change that in order to get them to where you can put them in jobs when you get to college.
Yeah.
So those things need to, you know, that's changed, but it's not such an issue now. You can actually do it at college level. So we can talk about that too.
Okay. We're talking with Mike Meyer, the Chief Information Officer for Honolulu Community College, and we'll be back in 1 minute.
This is Alice Lee Hagan host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island. I work in the ER there. But on Tuesday afternoons, I get to come and spend 45 minutes to an hour with Jay Fidel and the ThinkTech staff. They're terrific professionals. They help us to bring some of the leading cutting-edge topics here across our state to you. So you can join us at our show on healthcare in Hawaii to talk with leaders from across all the spectrum of health in our state, or you can join us for any other show where we talk about economic development or tourism or some really eclectic programs too. So really, we'd love to see you here on our show. Thanks for joining us and thanks for supporting us.
Hi, welcome back to ThinkTech Hawaii, Education Movers, Shakers, Reformers. We're talking with Mike Meyer, who has spent years and decades even in IT and is now the Chief Information Officer for Honolulu Community College. And he just talked to us about his journey through technology, cable, new product development, being an entrepreneur. But now you arrive at a big government institution, Honolulu Community College, part of the university system, part of the government system. Tell us what you were faced with when Mike Rhoda said, come on over.
Okay, all right. What I was faced with was a very, very interesting situation. Not surprising, because I'd been in the university system myself for 30 years teaching. I always remained part of the faculty, as an adjunct in this thing, because that was my original love, education. So when I wasn't surprised with what I found when I got there, right? But it was a bit daunting, because of financial reasons in the state, because of, those problems and how they affected the university. This was an issue. Things were not good in the IT world there. Things didn't work very well, right? There'd been a lot of money put into things, but it wasn't well coordinated. We'd gone through, as I mentioned, in my experience, through tremendous change over the course of the previous 20 years, right? Usually when people want me to talk about going back to the beginning, I go back only to the internet, right? Before that, there were things that happened, but they're not really relevant, right? Yeah, there was not really important before that, right? From the internet on, right, things get interesting and are serious. So how do you transform? The issue was, how do you transform a higher education institution? And in Honolulu Community College specifically, it's a combined liberal arts and career and technical education. It was originally a vocational job training institution, right, in its original form. And we have a lot of programs like that from, that are very much career and technical education, but a very large liberal arts program, right? So how do you deal with this? How do you make this work when people are complaining because their computers don't work and the network is down, right? So basically, I had to go through and do an analysis of the situation there. I had a good staff there, but they were kind of lost because they didn't really have, they had some direction, but it was a difficult situation. And I was out to change things anyway, right? So we set out to figure out what was wrong, what needed to be done. And a lot of that was technical, and a lot of it was very much the working nitty-gritty stuff rather than the interesting, exciting stuff you can talk to people in general about. One of the first things we had to do, I switched the phone system to voice over IP because the University of Hawaii had set up a system which they made available to all of the campuses. Honolulu Community College wasn't sure, and they were kind of saying, well, we can't really do that, so we're not going to do it. I got there and I said, let's do it. Let's get it in now. We need to get this done, right? So we got that in. It was a challenge, but it worked. And then I took a look at what was the major issue, which was security.
Okay, but before you go on, right? So you're talking about the telephone on your desk.
I'm talking about the telephone on the desk.
The most basic communication device that was not sort of...
It was an old PBX system, and most of them have converted to IP-based, which is actually internet-based. It's part of the network. My goal is always to do that. I've worked in that also on the commercial side, so I thought, well, let's get this together here. So what I had been asked to do to just kind of clarify things when I came in there was they were going through a reorganization, and the idea was to create a centralized IT, management executive position, right, that would actually coordinate all of the pieces of IT, which had originally been broken up into different departments in different places. Many colleges, many schools even, are like that still. Most have centralized because that's where it needs to go. The technology is too complicated, it's too sophisticated, it is aimed at centralization because you can't do it in pieces, really, which may be a little bit counterintuitive to people who are not aware of the technical background of all of this change. But that was what I was in to do, to reorganize, set up an IT services structure for it, which is what I've been doing, with the goal of turning it into a virtual campus that was able to work both in the traditional physical building environment, would be available online to anyone in the community that was interested in education within the Honolulu Community College curriculum.
I see. Well, you mentioned it was counterintuitive because, I do know that when I wore the legislative hat, we had dead terminals that were all centralized to one system, right? And as the internet came in, we all decided this ain't working. It's too centralized.
Yes.
It's too controlling. So we all went out and bought our own computers. Right? And eventually, being able to have the device you wanted, the kind of computer you wanted, the laptop later on you wanted, that seemed to work, much better than the controlled one. But now you're saying not so much anymore.
Yeah, definitely not so much anymore. In fact, a big part of what I've been building and what I'm doing now is putting in virtual desktop interfaces, which in one sense goes back to the old centralized processing structure with terminals on your desk that are not computers themselves, which is much more efficient. It is cheaper to operate, although not cheaper to install. But it is not the same thing at all. It's a whole nother level of how we're doing this. So many people say, oh, it just goes back around and goes back and forth. No, best to think of it like most processes of historical change as a spiral. It's moving in different, you may come back to a similar place, but you're at a completely different level from where you were. And that's very much what it is, right? So it's combining the individuality with the efficiency of centralized equipment.
So you're faced with faculty, I don't know how many faculty at HCC?
About 400, a little over 380.
Yeah, faculty.
I mean, that's faculty and staff.
Yeah,
right?
Faculty are notoriously independent.
Yes.
I do my thing. I've been doing this forever. This is the way I teach my course.
Yes.
I print it out, I Xerox it, whatever it is, right? Just the faculty as a stakeholder group must be a tremendous range of interest, knowledge, skill, willingness to learn.
Yes, very much a tremendous range. I mean, we deal with that in any organization, but yes, particularly in a college, wow, you've got a real range there from people who are seriously technical, right, who actually know the stuff and do it. And the approach that I take to that is what everybody does. We leave them alone, right? Here, you have your own thing. I'll support you. I'll give you, we work together for their things. The problems tends to be the ones who are not as technically adept as they think they are, but they think they are, right? And they need a little more careful help at times. And then there's a range of people that are, as you said, well, I've always done it this way, and I'm going to continue to do it this way. And that is a growing problem because I'm of the opinion, if you will, that is not going to survive much longer. But within some context, it works. Incidentally, we just did a major classroom building renovation over the last few years. And there was a requirement that we needed to keep some chalkboards in a couple of rooms, right? So we won't go into that because these whiteboard things were too, too modern.
Oh, it's not computers, it's
No, we're
whiteboards
talking
versus
chalkboards.
Chalkboards, I see, okay.
So that's the range
Yes,
that
yes.
we have.
Yes.
But the reality is that
People are asked to self-identify, chalkboard, whiteboard, new computer, local.
well, they did. I have to have a chalkboard in here, right? So, which is fine. I mean, you learn to deal with that. People, are teaching, right? They are going to do it the way they want to, and there's no reason to force into technology things that work just as well with the way they do it. Where that becomes a factor is in how you expand your audience, if you will. How you expand your student body, how many people you get to, because a lot of them you can't get to bringing them into a traditional classroom with a chalkboard. You're going to have to get to them out there, where they are. And one of the biggest groups for that is obviously working people who need to continue their education, need to be re-educated or want to be re-educated. And you need to get to them. That's a group that's frankly been, pretty much not developed well within the University of Hawaii system. The working people, right?
Well, I did have an experience where, I'm director of an educational policy center, and so there are a lot of really experienced teachers and administrators in public ed who are taking graduate courses. And, they're writing papers, serious papers, about the schools and the context that they work in. And so I began asking faculty, hey, if you have students who have written a really good paper, a study of their school or administrative or policy or whatever, with their permission, I would like to post them on, at least it's part of the body of knowledge about education, right? What I discovered, though, is so many faculty said, well, I never asked them to submit it electronically. I like to go over it, hard copy. And for them, even asking for the electronic copy was an unnecessary intrusion. And my other example is for collective bargaining. Collective bargaining agreements are public documents. A lot of major things done in them. But they are not produced in a form that can be posted. Have you run into that?
Oh, yes.
It's not even a technical issue. It's my habit is this.
Well, yes, you're right. It's not a technical issue. In fact, as I was saying about what I did when I got to Honolulu Community College, the first 3 years was really setting up fixing the technical nitty-gritty. We have to have the capabilities to do this stuff. What I transitioned to over the last year is having to deal directly with the people issues, right, which are the real issues, right? Because what you're alluding to in terms of, electronic submittal of papers and things or posting them is a really important issue that I feel has got to change. Because my goal has been from the beginning, and I've said it very much, this is one of the goals of my ITS organization. What I think needs to happen is we need to get all course content online. That doesn't mean teaching online classes. That means getting the information that you present in class online and having students put information online, okay? Because I think that's a critical change, and that's hard. There are people that really don't want to do that, right? For a lot of reasons. Habit, also because there's a traditional concern with intellectual property, right? How do we control that, right? Who gets to see my things? Those are issues that have to be worked out, and they're not technical issues, but they very definitely have to be dealt with within the technical framework of what you're doing to change a campus into something new.
Well, fascinating. We're talking with Mike Meyer, the Chief Information Officer for Honolulu Community College, and we've been talking about all the challenges he faced when he arrived on campus. And right after our break, we'll get into what is the ideal IT world for Mike Meyer on his campus.
Aloha, I'm Kili'i Akina, president of the Grassroot Institute and host on Ehana Kako, a weekly program on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. Ehana Kako means let's work together. Think of the sad alternative, let's not work together. Here in Hawaii, with all of our diversity and the richness of the people, it's important for us to come together around issues on the basis of what's right, and what's good, and what's going to serve the common good. And that's what we try to do at Ehana Kako. Every week, we interview movers and shakers, people in government, business, and other sectors of society, to talk about how to create together a better government, economy, a better world here in Hawaii that can bless the rest of the world. I thank you for your attention to ThinkTech Hawaii, and we look forward to seeing you every Monday, 2 to 3 p.m. on the ThinkTech Hawaii Broadcast Network. We're Ehana Kako, and we wish you well. Aloha.
Welcome back to ThinkTech Hawaii's focus on education movers, shakers, and reformers. Today's show is focusing on what is being done and dreamed of at a major higher education institution, Honolulu Community College. We're talking with Mike Meyer, the Chief Information Officer, spent 30 more years in this business, and now we come to paint the ideal picture, Mike, of your institution. What's hidden in that brain of yours?
Oh my goodness, not a whole lot actually, right? All right, what should it be? Where are we going with this? Okay. As I kind of mentioned, getting course content online, it's a software-defined campus. That's the term that I'm using now. For a while, I used the term a cloud campus, right? How to get it out there for people. As I said, the challenge, I think, particularly for community colleges, for any institution of education, for any university, but particularly for community colleges, is to get to as many people as possible with both job training, with general education, with all of the things that they need to be happy in life and to be successful. And particularly when you're dealing with, as we are in Honolulu Community College, we're in Kalihi, we're in an area that is not strong economically, right? And we have a lot of people who struggle with jobs, being able to stay employed. In fact, the canal next to our campus is loaded with people who are homeless, right? Who are living there in tents. That's a constant reminder, every day when we look at it. So the idea is, how do we get to those people? How do we expand this and make it valuable to people? A simple way is, how do you increase your enrollment? But increase your enrollment in a way that helps the community. So I don't see any way to do that other than with technology, that is with web delivery of courses and content. As I said a minute ago, I'm not necessarily saying that all courses need to be online courses in the way that's been presented in the past, but an awful lot of them can be, right? I think that needs to be an option, and then almost every course should be available at least partially online. To achieve that, we would be able to say to people, you can get to this, right? You can get to this easily, right? You don't have to take time out of your workday and your kids going here. And people don't have a lot of time. They're stressed, particularly if they're working 2 jobs, right? Or trying to stay afloat. So we need, that is, the university system, the college system, we need to get to these people. We need to say, here's a way that you can do it. And to me, I like to think of it at a couple of levels, right? By delivering course content, by delivering courses in a kind of virtualized environment like that, we're helping them to learn how to work in that kind of environment. This is an issue when you deal, particularly as we do with career and technical education, with many jobs don't really require a lot of online work. Welders, we train welders, we train sheet metal workers, right? Very, very good jobs, right, to do this. They don't really have to be online, although computers control the sheet metal equipment. They need to understand that. So for many of them, if their background, and we have many students whose parents did not go to college, right? They're the first ones to make it to higher education. They don't have a whole lot of experience or knowledge in the family about how does this work. So it's a way to get that, to make the campus extend out to them when they may be intimidated about coming to, a campus, a higher education institution with all these weird people who walk around, you know,
Yes,
you know, like me, right? Walk around.
Well, what about the support system for these students, the staff, the administration, your shop? I mean, talk a little bit about what kind of a team you have to do this, and how administrators are their own bundle of challenges.
Oh, yeah, definitely, they are. Mostly that's because the administration is so different from the rest of the campus, right? We live in a, you know, this bifurcated world on the campus with, from my perspective, this is a data perspective, right? The faculty and the students and the majority of the campus, right, is totally open. The idea is information for everyone, easy access to everything. And the administration is, my God, this is delicate, secure data, right? We have to protect this stuff, right? I don't want anybody else to see this. And we have to protect student information above all else, right? So a very controlled environment. Okay, how do you put all of those together? It's very different worlds. And you move from one to the other as you do on a campus, as you know, with many faculty moving up, at least for a time, into administrative positions, they have to change the way they think. So we have to educate them in that too. Data security is a big issue, which I will not belabor at this point, but it's an issue with it. How do you create a team for this? Well, the team has to be online. All of your services have to be available to everybody everywhere. That's really the goal. That means administrative services, it means, you know, registration, support services, tutoring. You know, we actually are implementing a lot of this stuff within the community college system within the University of Hawaii, which can work. It's a little bit of a challenge. Things like using data to track students more specifically. Used to be, the first years that I taught, that we taught together in places, you know, you graded people's exams, right? They had a midterm, they had a final, and then they got their grade, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then you say, whoop, sorry, didn't make it. And they come to, okay, well, what can I do to, all right, you know, what can I do to make up for this? We have systems going into operation now that are in place that track students so that a faculty can put a check mark next to a student's name so they can be contacted by a counselor because they're not doing too well, right? Or they appear to be having problems with time management or all of those things, which is very much a part of the world we live in. You have to manage your time, right, to be there. At the community college level, we have a real problem that we're struggling with the cafeteria-style education, right? Because there's all of these courses, there's all of these programs, and we bring kids in from high school, in many cases without family experience in higher education. I say, okay, here, which program do you want, right? Or this one's this and this one that. And then, okay, get going. If you pick one, and then they have to take the courses. They take the wrong courses, and they don't get the courses they need to complete the program, and they give up and quit, right? Oh, frustrated and quit. So, well, wait a minute, this is actually a data processing issue. We need to know what they're doing, and we need to be able to step in and help them, which we, i.e. the IT people, we can provide the paths for information for people to do that. That's what you need to put in place, right, to make this work.
I'm also thinking about the user friendliness of any system,
Oh, yeah.
a web page. And I know that a few years ago, our Department of Education changed its web page. From a purely researcher's point of view, I used to be able to find anything really quickly. Now, they've actually said, we're not going to put this on, or you have to go through several steps to find it. Just from my use, it is much more difficult to navigate. When you look at that as an example, I would imagine administrators, if the web interface isn't logical and easy to use, all the things you do about sharing data could fall apart, couldn't they?
Oh, yeah, very much so. The design of those things has not been a strong point in school, you know, in educational institutions, right? Because that's what you lived in when you worked in the advertising world of corporations, where I lived and worked for, you know, a long time, where you really focus on doing things like that. So it's easy to mess that up, very easy to mess it up. It takes focus, it takes skill, it takes awareness of the problem. I can't really answer how to fix that one, other than that's also being centralized. The University of Hawaii Community Colleges now have a centralized web model, so all of the websites tie into the community college system. So they all are, they're not the same, but they include the same things, work the same way, you find the information the same way, and common information is common to it. And that's an indication of how things are changing too, because all of our students in the community college system can take courses from any community college once they're in, and they do. They don't even consider themselves necessarily like, well, I'm at Honolulu Community College, or I'm, you know, well, that's my home campus, but I'm taking courses at Kapiolani, right? And I'm taking courses at Leeward. I'm taking courses in Kauai, right? Because they're doing it online, right?
So are we moving into where Honolulu Community College, in your development, could actually be a leading model for the rest of the system? Is this part of your aspirations to model a really well-integrated, data-moving, consumer-driven system?
Nicely put, Jim. Nicely put, yes. Yeah, that's exactly what my goals are.
Yes.
You know, obviously, you know, I'm one person trying to do this with the support of the campus, and we've come a long ways, and I think we can do it. I think it can work, right?
So, what kind of a team do you have? Do you have 2 people, 3 people?
No,
what's a
it's
budget?
14 people altogether within HON ITS, as we're called, which covers quite a range of things, technical activities, right? And I've eliminated some things from it, which we created a couple of years ago, a new division called academic support, which handles library and counseling and tutoring and a lot of those things, in which I decided to move our computer labs and things to that, which was traditionally a technical thing. But it's not really technical anymore. I mean, it's where students go to get on and to do things. It's more likely tutoring and, you know, working with content than it is any technical issue. We support it, but we don't run
So
it.
here's the Fisher Cut Bait question. Do you have meetings online or face-to-face?
Yes, we actually have daily meetings, right, face-to-face, right?
Yes.
That's something that I learned to do in my years as an entrepreneur, particularly when you're building a team, right? You need, not long, we have in effect what we call a huddle in the morning, which is stand up, 15 minutes max, right? Just touch base, who's got a problem, who's working on what. We could do that online. I've done companies where I've done that online, but I find it works better if you bring people together, if you can. I mean, it's a combination. You have to use the technology, but it's not all technology. People.
Well, I look forward to seeing, you know, the national and state award for leadership in IT transformation. I'm sure there'll be a medal for you. I think you're doing a tremendous amount of stuff, and you bring a tremendous amount of knowledge, real-world experience to the university, and I'm hoping that they will, you know, give you the rope you need.
Well, they have so far,
Yes,
you know. We'll see how it goes, but yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Well, we've been talking with Mike Meyer, the Chief Information Officer for Honolulu Community College, about what the needs are on campus and where it's going. Thank you for joining us. I'm Jim Shon. This is ThinkTech Hawaii, Education Movers, Shakers, and Reformers.